Welcome to Chewing the Fat, a WorkForge podcast, your source for bite-sized conversations about the world of food manufacturing staffing, retention, onboarding, training, and career development, featuring operators, industry leaders, and more.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to Chewing the Fat, a WorkForge podcast. Very excited for this installment of Chewing the Fat today to discuss bridging the skills gap, the importance of upskilling. I'm today's host, Chris Clark, the Senior Marketing Manager with WorkForge and a veteran of the food industry. With me is my good friend, Lisa Miller, an HR leader with PPC Flexible Packaging, and also a veteran in the food processing space. Lisa, thank you for joining me today. Great to see you.
Thanks, Chris. Good to be here.
So in the previous podcast, we had kind of discussed reskilling and the importance of reskilling as it pertains to retention in the production workforce. Today, you and I are going to kind of focus on upskilling. And I really want to talk about the importance of onboarding and upskilling to improve overall retention and satisfaction kind of at the beginning of the employee life cycle, and what the costs of not doing so are. And I kind of also want to talk about what not to do, because I know you and I have both seen what not to do, what doesn't work, bad ideas that sound good, that sort of thing. So that's kind of what we're going to touch on today. Sound good?
Sound great. Perfect.
So in your experience, I kind of want to kick off the conversation here, the difference between reskilling and upskilling, particularly in the food industry, and kind of how that looks in a real world environment, because today we're going to focus on upskilling. I know you've got experience in both and you see value in both, but today we're going to talk about upskilling. But maybe let's kind of delineate and talk about the differences between the two. So in your experience, if someone stopped you on the street and said, what's the difference between reskilling and upskilling? What would you say?
So reskilling boils down to somebody as a new employee or even an existing employee who has sort of lost track of the technical aspects of what they need to do every single day. And so reskilling would be like, let's put them back through the process and make sure that they are aware of what they need to do differently. So it's basically teaching an old dog new tricks and making sure that they are crisp and clear of their expectations of what they need to accomplish. Sometimes they're trained wrong, and sometimes they have habits that really don't bode well for what needs to be accomplished on that line. And so for the most part, reskilling is a constant progression of making sure that that person is in the role that they should be and that they're doing it correctly and that they're a leader on that line. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yep.
Upskilling to me is a pay progression. So somebody who has that skill set and wants to move ahead and wants to make more money, honey. And that's really what it boils down to, is how do you show them a career path? Upskilling is more exciting to me because it's not about the everyday routine. It's about enhancing the everyday routine. It is about how do we, as a hire to retire, develop a career path for that person on the line, right? So do they want to start in one department and then move over to another department? You know, what is the flow? What does it look like? Every supervisor should sit down with every person on their line and develop their own career path. And that is what WorkForge does. They take that, and then you can have, samples of different job prospects out there, right? Of where they want to go and how much money they can make. So that's to me, those are the differences.
And
Make
sense? I would go as far, because there's also, in the industry, you've got like refresher trainings. If you're talking about like an SQF refresher, a GMP annual refreshers, things like that. So your reskilling and refreshers, to me, are two different things.
Yes, totally. And It's two different buckets. Yep, that's a good point to make.
Because the way I look at it is, your refresher is just, it's a refresh. Don't forget, this is how we do it. This is why we do it. This is our standard.
Well, even specs on the line change, right? So then you have to do it differently. So that's another reskill. Yeah.
What are some success stories or some actual outcomes you have seen by really taking advantage of that career path upskilling at on, like when someone comes on at an onboard from day one, they see like, here's my path, here's where I can make more money, here's where I can grow, here's my upward mobility. I'm sure you have a lot, but can you kind of glean some insight on like, how did this actually happen, or how does this happen?
We went through a whole revamp of new hire orientation, and we focused on not what was happening before was people would go through maybe a day of training, and then they put them out on the floor.
You could call it training.
And then there would be this, oh my gosh, I have to jump into this line and figure out what the heck to do. There was nothing done, no structure, no kind of establishment. And what was happening is because people wouldn't show up to work, folks wouldn't happen. The trainers that were the leads on these lines would get forced to work the line. And so holding supervisors accountable to, nope, these folks are to help bridge that gap and spend time with them so they feel comfortable before they go on to the line. And so there was a full development of what needed to happen. And then we had to put languages to it. We had to make sure that everybody on that line could understand what they needed to accomplish and feel comfortable. And I think that is what it boils down to, is making sure that there are, checks along the way, that they're assigned a mentor, that they're assigned somebody, a buddy that will be on that line. There was a lot of times where families were assigned to a line, and because there was a comfort level, and it was easier for the supervisor to communicate with one person that spoke better English than the other.
You just said a minute ago something that I'm really glad you said, and I was going to bring it up, like a mentorship program, and at least a supportive culture of learning and making sure people are comfortable. This is all a part, I think, of the initial orientation, making them comfortable and giving them the tools to then upskill and grow their career within the organization. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely. A mentorship, a buddy, whatever you want to call it, has to be established. But what's really important is that you spend time developing and training the mentors so they know the expectations of what they need to do with this new population. And then there's even some bonuses tied to, mentors getting some of like retention bonuses of, hey, you've kept, you have these 4 people that you're mentoring, and, within 6 months to a year, you get a small little bonus. And obviously we want people to do it because they want to, but don't mistake training with mentor, because there's trainers that get paid for doing it. And then the mentors are, the buddies that help them along the way. But we throw a little incentive there because we want them to stick around. We want them to, because we all know the cost of the turnover and how expensive it can be, especially when people work on the line, right? And so that is a real big issue that's happening in today's world. Like, where have all the labor has gone, and so finding someone, so you want to keep that team engaged. And so if they know that they've got a little, pot at the end of their rainbow, a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, that's what they're looking for.
One more thing I want to touch on before we move on is, so when I look at upskilling, I don't think of it only as how you can go from operator 1 to operator 2 to operator 3. I see it how you become a leader, how you become a line supervisor, a department supervisor, a superintendent, a general plant manager, and how you work your way up from that. And something that I know I saw a lot, we saw a lot, is that companies many times will promote those employees who are strong on the line into leadership roles without preparing them to lead, without skilling them in leadership. Talk to me about that. I know you've seen this, you're seasoned at this. And to me, like, in my head, that is like one of the worst things you can do.
Right. There's often a mistake where supervisor, or I should say leaders, get desperate to just fill the role and fill that role. Oh, well, he's really good at that job, or she's really good at that job, she can do it. Well, that's not right. Because what has to happen is you have to have that ability to actually have the core leadership competencies.
Mhm.
And so if we have identified somebody that truly wants to move ahead and move into a management role, they have to go through a series of intro to leadership. And there's a whole leadership library in WorkForge that they must take before they're even considered to be on the list of being like a supervisor or a mentor. And typically the path goes a lead, and then are they doing all the right things as a lead? And then that lead would get promoted to a supervisor role on their shift. And there's 4 different shifts in where in most plants in our organization have 4 different shifts, and then there's some that have 3 different shifts. So it just depends on what schedule they have.
Yeah.
But it is a big deal, because if you put somebody in the wrong role and they don't have the leadership competencies, just because they're really good at their job doesn't mean that they can go into management. It doesn't happen that way. They have to have the core leadership competencies, and really it boils down to the values, and are they living the values every single day?
Something I've just been kind of curious about, again, wanting to pick your brain. In your opinion, what are kind of some of the mutual benefits to the company and the employee for upskilling new hires? We've touched on a lot of them. We've kind of done some of this. There are a few that come to my mind, and I want you to tell me if you agree or disagree, and please elaborate if you like.
Okay.
So I've got 2 benefits for the employee. I think one, it kind of shows appreciation and a value of the employee to the company. The employee says, wow, they're investing in me, and they want to improve my abilities and my skills. Would you agree with that?
100%. And I'll just add, a little footnote to it, is when people feel supported in a culture of learning and growing, then they actually want to move ahead faster. And that's where pay progressions and support and recognition come into play. And so you have to be doing all those 3 things for people to really take advantage of that, for sure.
Perfect. My second point, it shows the employee a defined pathway to develop and grow their career within the organization. We've talked about that a lot. I think it's safe to say you agree with that.
Yes, absolutely. We used to have a performance review where annual reviews are yearly, but now that we have pay for progression, those reviews are happening a lot quicker and sooner. There should never be a discussion with a team member where they feel like they don't know where they stand with their skill level or how they're doing as a member of the PPC family, right? And so to me, knowing their expectations of what's expected of them, and then what we are going to provide for them, their career path, and ironing that out, spending time with supervisors and leads to develop that with them is the most critical thing we can do. Yeah. So they're going to go to WorkForge. They're going to click on their learning path. The supervisor can assign them different paths. Maybe they want to learn about going to a different department. They can take a peek at that training and what that looks like. And then, that's something that's in the supervisor's hands, that they have access to all the time to make sure that they have a crew that's constantly being developed and getting more skills under their belt.
Yeah. Awesome. Great answer. And I've got 2 more points now, not for the employee per se, but I want to look at it from the organization standpoint. So let's kind of flip the script here. Effective upskilling can really be and kind of is your succession plan for future supervisors and leadership of the company. Would you agree?
Yes, we started the process of it, and what was interesting is you take your top. Let's say you go 2 levels down from the CEO, right? And you take your top leaders, and let's say there's 54 top leaders, right, in the organization, and you sort of put them in these boxes of high performer, high impact performer, superstar performer. Mm-hmm. And then you have this like 4 boxes that are sort of your people that you've identified. So, if there's 54 people, now all of a sudden 32 people are identified, of sort of hitting that upper echelon. They're high potential. We call them hypos, right? High potential. They are the future of PPC, right? Yep. Leadership and setting the strategy and everything. So when you talk about upskilling, they need to develop a professional development plan. And that allows them to focus on the skills that they're and their leader want them to focus on. And this is not something that's going to happen overnight. You take that time, you develop that plan over the course of 2 to 3 months. You really feel like it's solid. You take the time to go through the training, right? And there's exposures, there's education, and there's experience. And so, you assign them mentors, you give them leadership projects, you give them stretch projects, you focus on, are they getting the right skills under the belt, and so that takes time to develop and craft. And then you focus on doing that group, and then you do the next group, and then you do the next group, and you continue that process with everybody and bringing them along. And so it's very complicated. It takes a lot of time, but once you get the first one done, it's you're cooking with gas, because then you can start developing it, and then you're working 3 to 5 years into the future of focusing. Yeah,
that's where you want to be. My last point.
I want to add that WorkForge did custom work to develop what exactly we wanted in the professional development plan, and it was huge what they did. And they did it pretty quickly, and it was amazing. And working with that team to get that done was pretty cool.
Well, that's awesome. Thanks for saying that.
Yeah.
I guess my final point, really, and we've gone over this. I mean, I feel like we're just rehashing the same thing, but a satisfied employee, an employee satisfaction holistically is employee retention.
Right.
You agree with that?
Yes. The best gift, most people leave an organization because they don't like who their leader is, their boss, whatever you want to call them. Mm-hmm. And when they aren't doing constant check-ins on their well-being, getting to know them as a person, focusing on their development and their career path, and giving them the benefits to support them along the way, then you're never going to keep the right people, right? Mm-hmm. And that also has a double meaning too, because if you have a high producing team, they don't want to have that low producer on the team to ruin that reputation. So you have to have those difficult conversations, and you have to be willing to do that. And all of our leaders are on that track of making sure that it's okay. You can disagree and collaborate in a way that can. I've never had a person quit on me, because they already know that they aren't, that they're not a good fit for the role. And so focusing on getting those people that are constantly wanting to upskill and do better and play to win, which is one of our core values. That's what we're constantly looking for. So it does boil, when you're talking about a professional development plan and their career path, they have to drive that. That is their career. They have to drive it. It's not, what can the company do for you? What can you do for the company? And how do you drive your career path and focus on that? And so that's really important for a lot of folks to understand, if they have a home here at PPC.
So moving on, I want to kind of wrap our arms around everything we've just talked about. Say someone is listening, watching this conversation that you and I are having, and they're like, "This sounds great. This is perfect. This is the silver bullet to the problem that I fight every day. I would love to implement this upskilling and the performance plan and everything Lisa's talking about. Where do I start?"
Well, hopefully they already are signed up to WorkForge. I mean, that's where I started. What WorkForge has is the sophistication to work with each vendor, each of their clients, and to figure out what they need to make their whole company and organization go to the next level. Mm-hmm. And so WorkForge enables everybody to go to the next level. That's basically what it boils down to. The things to focus on are succession planning. And, now that, we've developed the PDP, they have it, they can use it, they can tweak it and make it for other companies moving forward. On top of that, the career path and the learning paths that WorkForge has developed is essential to retention and keeping the right people that want to drive their career and want to actually have a career for not just 3 or 4 years and hop around, that actually want to stay at a company and build their wealth, through 401k and their skills and all that amazing stuff that happens when you are happy working for a company and engaged.
Yeah, I was going to kind of play off of what you said, but you took the words from my mouth.
That's great.
I think that a lot of times the department or executive leadership or whoever is making the decision will say, we can do it in-house. We can do that. We got this. We can do that. And it's not a question of whether you have the ability to. I think everyone has dreams and we can do this. You have the idea. Yes, you have the ability to. Do you have the resources to? Do you have the time? Do you have the staffing? Without that, they're just pipe dreams and they don't get done.
That's right.
So you just, bring on a partner that you trust, that you think can get the job done and can prove by hitting KPIs, by your decreased employee turnover, by showing your production performance efficiencies improving, outputs improving, waste and rework is dropping, by showing all that. It's a long game. You're not going to see it in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. It's a long game, but it is so well worth it. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. If you're willing to roll up your sleeves, put the time and effort into thinking through your strategy and working through that. And then even when I have my weekly meetings with WorkForge, we're still talking about, we've got to focus on this, and this week. We've got to drill down on this. We have to work on this, and it's such a great, project management role that is helpful and as an extension of the organization. So I really look at WorkForge as a family in that they're, sometimes I feel like, we're all in the same PPC family, but I'm like, oh wait, they are just, you guys you check a lot of boxes and WorkForge delivers on the customization, the customer service, and also, focusing on giving us smart tools to get to the next level.
Great. I love to hear that. I'm glad that you guys have been so successful, and we've been so successful in a partnership. So I think that's fantastic. Thank you for saying that. I'll be sure everyone on the team knows. So I've taken a lot of your time today, Lisa. I really appreciate you joining me, reflecting over our past together. We learned a lot, and but I really appreciate you taking the time, taking a little trip down memory lane with me, and just sharing your experience and kind of giving us some more insight on upskilling in a real world environment and the effects that it can have, and how it can improve business and operations just holistically. So thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it. And for anyone who's would like to learn more about the topic that Lisa and I talked about today, upskilling, just go to workforge.com/blog, and you'll be able to find many more blogs and a bunch more information and assets and resources to really help you understand and guide you down the path of upskilling your workforce. So thank you for sitting down, chatting with us today, listening to us today. As always, until next time, just keep on forging ahead. Thanks.
Thank you for joining this episode of Chewing the Fat, a WorkForge podcast. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Visit workforge.com to learn more and sign up for more food manufacturing resources at workforge.com/blog.